The valuation and pricing of a target are central to all M&A transactions. A significant portion of negotiations is focused on optimizing valuation and exploring the use of escrows, earnouts, or deferred consideration arrangements to ensure the alignment of parties.
Our data set reveals that escrows are used in a very limited number of transactions. In fact, out of more than 100 transactions that were looked at, escrows were found in only around 12% of the transactions. Of these transactions, escrows were used the most in 100% acquisitions. Around 33% of these transactions had an escrow structure built in place. The reason for the party's reluctance to use an escrow is typically because it adds another contracting party to the entire deal dynamic and an additional set of complicated documentation which the parties prefer to not negotiate. It typically ends up delaying closing, and this explains the very limited use of escrow in the transactions in our data set. Even in the limited number of transactions where escrows were used, they were typically used for facilitating the following. One is payment of deferred consideration, ensuring certainty of closing by ensuring that parties had put money on the table, and lastly, for post-closing adjustments. Talking of earnouts, these are usually put in place to incentivize management or promoters who may remain in the business. Interestingly, only around 11% of the transactions in our data set had earnouts, and these pertain largely to the IT/ITES sectors, followed by retail and consumer sector. Deferred consideration is seen only in a small fraction of transactions in our data set, roughly 16% of the transactions. This is possibly due to the restrictions that the RBI has in place around deferred consideration. But interestingly, not a single transaction in our data set required regulatory approvals because the parties worked within the constraints that have been put in place by the Reserve Bank of India. The reasons for deferred consideration varied from deal to deal. Typically, these were put in place to cater to post-closing adjustments and in certain cases to ensure the satisfaction of conditions precedent, after which the deferred consideration was released to the sellers.